Most people by nature are very generous, but believe it or not, that generosity can become clouded when it comes to giving at the holidays, and it has to do with tricks our minds can play on us. Joining us with more on this is Christopher Olivola, Assistant Professor of Marketing at Carnegie Mellon University's Tepper School of Business. Hi, Christopher. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So your findings about why we donate come from a survey of Wall Street Journal followers on social media. What led you to launch this survey?
Well, we were writing this piece for the Wall Street Journal, and we thought it would be great to kind of replicate, re-examine some of the studies that I and others have done with much larger samples, but with followers of the Wall Street Journal social media pages, just to show that some of these might be the readers, to show that these findings don't just apply to whatever samples we happen to run, that it's kind of generalized to really anybody, most people, including the audiences that are likely to read the piece.
It's so interesting because you found three main errors that people make that often limit the scope and effectiveness of their charity. So let's start with what you call the martyrdom effect.
Right. So one thing I found, starting my dissertation research, and I've been working on it since, is that there's this kind of really interesting phenomenon where people prefer means of donating, of contributing to charity that tend to be painful and effortful. Right. So that's why we have the popularity of marathons for charity, or of course the recently really popular Ice Bucket Challenge. On the face of it, it seems great that people are sacrificing, blood, sweat, and tears to raise money for charity. But it's actually interesting. It's quite funny that people prefer these painful and effortful means of donating when, of course, running a marathon or pouring ice bucket water on your head, they don't by themselves, cure disease or help feed the hungry, right? But for some reason, we've come to kind of value this combination of pain when raising money for charity. And that's what I call the martyrdom effect. So what we're finding basically is if people have to, I would say, suffer something like, a really difficult event to raise money for charity, they're much more motivated to donate. They're willing to donate more, or they're more willing to sponsor their friend who's going to do a difficult challenge, compared to if they're raising money for the same cause, but in a painless way.
Very, very interesting. Now, you also found something that you called the other nothing neglect. Can you explain that?
Sure. So this is building off work that I started a couple years ago. We're looking at how people were, trade off, earning money now versus later, and I kind of extended that to decisions between keeping money for yourself and having money go to others. And basically, what we're finding is that when you're considering a trade-off, like all of us have the option every day, we could either purchase that coffee or that tea, or we could donate that money to charity, right? And what we're finding is that when people consider giving money, let's say to charity or to another person, it's very salient to them that that's money that they're not going to get, right? That's minus one coffee for you. But when we're going and spending money on ourselves, there's this kind of asymmetry. We don't as quickly consider where that money could be used to help other people. So basically, there's kind of this asymmetry where we're very quick to consider the losses to ourselves or the foregone gains when we're generous, but we're not as quick to consider the foregone gains to other people when we decide to be selfish. And that kind of fundamental asymmetry, this lack of consideration for other people, is, I think, one of the things that inhibits our charitable giving. And basically what we found is if you subtly remind people that if you decide to keep money, someone else is going to get nothing, then you can boost generosity, because what we think we're doing is reminding people that there is a consequence to keeping money for yourself, that there's another person who's not going to benefit, another needy person who's not going to get that money.
Absolutely.
That makes people more generous.
And that brings us into your third finding, which is the unexpected joy of giving.
So that's actually not my finding. That's a finding by a couple of researchers at University of British Columbia, Simon Fraser University, and Harvard Business School, who published a really nice paper a couple of years ago. And they did a couple of studies. Probably I would say the key study is they did an experiment where they basically took a group of participants and they gave them some money, either $5 or $20. And for half of them, they instructed them, spend that money on yourself. And then at the end of the day, report back to us. The other half, they told them, spend this money on someone else, right? You could donate to charity or buy a gift for your friends. And again, report back at the end of the day. And what they found is the people who had spent the money on others were much happier at the end of the day than those who had spent the same amount of money on themselves. So the idea is I think we tend to think that, one reason we may not want to give to charity is because we'd be happier spending on ourselves. That new TV is going to make us happier than giving the money away. But actually, this research suggests that people get a lot more satisfaction, at least most people, at the end of the day, from helping others than purchasing things for themselves.
A great message going into the holiday season. Thank you for that, Christopher.
Yeah, absolutely.